Don't know what really happened, but I got locked out. Welcome to my live. I'm just going to wait a few minutes for people to come in. Hello, welcome in. Welcome in, welcome in. Welcome in, welcome in. Hold on, you guys. I cannot see who is on. Give me 1 second. I thought I had it set up where I could see the comments. Let's see. I'm going to take you off for a second. I'm great. How are you? Happy Saturday. Welcome in, ladies. Hopefully I won't be on here long. How are you doing today? All right. I'm not going to labor the time. Thank you for liking. Again, welcome to Wine and Design. My name is Kim. I am the owner operator of Copper Hue Collections, where I make natural skincare products and, well, skin and hair care products. I've actually been doing that for since 2012. I actually had ended my business because my husband and I were supposed to move and leave the country back in 2021. And so I had to sell everything because I couldn't take none of my products out the country because they had different regulations. So I just rebranded and started back up now that we settled here in South Carolina. So you can head on over to www.copperhuecollections.com and pick up, our hair growth oil and butters. We have scrubs, body butters, and bath salts will be going up on there hopefully on Monday. I got a batch of them. The bags came destroyed, so I had to send them back. I don't know what happened. It's almost like something spilled on and got inside of the packaging. But we're gonna go ahead and continue with crocheting a hat. Unfortunately, you ladies, I cannot see your comments, so please bear with me. I'm still new at trying to film. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this. We're going to go ahead and crochet the baby hat. I'm going to flip this. Hopefully this is in the right format. So as you know, last week I crocheted, this for my grandbaby on the way. And I hope you've seen my post where I had a list of materials if you wanted to join along that you would need for today. So we're going to go ahead and make this. This is a 0 to 3 month hat. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, today what you would need is a 5mm hook, a pair of scissors, a darning needle, your counter, and some stitch markers. Now again, I typically don't use stitch markers, but for the sake of the video, since it's a tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and use the stitch markers. So I'm going to go ahead and put my counter on. And again, remember the counter is simply for letting us know what row we're on. And then I have my yarn that I still had not, made the hat yet. So again, we learned how to make the magic circle. So we'll go over it again. me turn this a little bit more so you can see it better. Is that better for you, or is that better? I think that might be better for you guys. Okay. So again, you're going to take your tail, and this is your working yarn that's attached to your ball. You're going to take your yarn and wrap it around your hand. Take your working yarn and wrap it around the back. We're going to take our hook and go under the first piece of yarn and hook onto the second one and pull it through. Take our finger and lock it into place. That is now, sorry y'all, dropped it. Let's do that again. And leave yourself a nice little tail, because you're going to use that to sew in your hat to make it more secure. Wrap it around. Take your hook underneath and draw and pull up and lock it in. Drop your yarn, take your working yarn, wrap it around, and that locks that stitch into place. And that gives us our circle to be working with. What we're going to do, as we learned last week, the double crochet, we're going to do 10 double crochets in the round. So you're going to take your yarn, wrap it around, and we're going to do a chain of 2 and pull through and then pull through. Now, I don't count the chain that we made, just because that helps lock in your hat without any gaps. As you can see, that makes it a little bit more tighter when you're closing it in. So we're going to go ahead and do 10 double crochets. Again, we're going to wrap the yarn around, stick it into the circle, grab the yarn, pull it through. That gives us the 3 loops. Take your yarn, wrap it around and pull through 2. Wrap it around and pull through 2. All right. That's 1. And we're going to go continue, wrap around, pull, go through the loop, pull it up. Take your yarn, wrap it around, pull through 2, and pull through 2. That is your second double crochet. Let's do it again. Take your yarn, wrap it around, go through your circle, pull up your yarn, give you your 3 hoops, take your yarn, wrap it around, pull through 2, wrap it around, pull through 2. That's 3. We're going to go ahead and continue. That's 4. And I'm going fairly slow today because I am live. That's 5. That's 6. That's 7. 8. 9. And 10. Now, if you remember, I showed you, you're going to take your tail now, and you're just going to pull it slightly. Just pull it until you close up that hole. Okay? And you'll see just like a little tiny gap there. That is fine. You can close it up by sewing it in closed straight, or you can just go ahead and finish and it'll tighten up on its own. Now, as you see, there are the V's. Remember last week I taught you about the V's. That's your chain that you turned up. But then you have this V and this V. We're going to take our hook and stick it into that very top V. That's the third one. So you have 1, 2, and 3. Take your yarn and wrap it around and pull it through both of the pieces of yarn. And that's how you close up your circle, as you can see. So that is the top of your hat. Now, as remember I told you, also pull your yarn up if you want to take your hook off so that you won't lose your stitching. Now, if you wanted to make this bigger, what you can do, 2 things. You can go up a hook size to a 5.5 to make it bigger. So if you wanted to do it for 3 to 6 months, you would just go up a hook size. Or you can do 12 in the round. This is called in the round. You can do 12 stitches. That would also increase the size. Um, you don't want to go no bigger than 12. You don't need to go no bigger than 12, I should say, even if you were doing an adult size hat. What happens is that you just do more with this, what is called increasing rows, to make the hat bigger if you're going to do it for a teen or an adult woman's or adult men's. So pretty much 10 to 12 stitches in the round in the beginning is all you really need. So remember, we just finished. Now this is row 1. We just finished. We just closed up. So we're going to hit our counter, or whichever counter you have. You're going to hit your counter to close up your, to mark that you completed row 1. Now we're going to go ahead and do row 2. Take your working yarn again. We're going to go ahead and chain. Remember, we learned to chain. You take your hook, wrap it around, pull through 1, pull through 2, and do it loosely. I know a lot of us have some tight tension, but we're going to try to do this loosely. Now, what we're going to do is, let me show you this. So I have a little gap right here. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Now, as you can see, the chain, this is a chain where we didn't count that chain. That's not a chain that we're going to count. And how you know that is if you go and you take your V's. Remember, I showed you how to count backwards. These are your V's. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is going to be your first stitch. Let me tighten that up a little bit more, you guys. Okay, there we go. There, it's tightened up. Now, we're going to go ahead and chain up 2. So if you look at where your stitch is coming out of, we're actually going to do what is called an increase row, where you're going to put another stitch into that same stitch that you just increased. So you're going to wrap your yarn around again to do a double crochet. You're going to go right into that same stitch and make a double crochet. So now you have 2 stitches in that same stitch. So what you're going to do now is each stitch around, you're going to do 2 double crochets. This is what's called an increase row, where you're going to increase the stitches, what's going to draw up your stitches to make it a little bit bigger. So as you can see in my hat, this is row 1 here. This is row 2. And you can see that row 2 is bigger than row 1. And to get that, is the way to get that size is to increase your stitches. So we're going to go ahead and see that V. We're going to go ahead and put a double crochet into that next V. And then we're going to put a second double crochet into that same exact stitch. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do 2 double crochets now in each V stitch that you see. At the end of that row, you should have a total of 20 stitches. All right. And we're going to count our stitches again. Since this is beginner, we're going to count these stitches again to make sure that we have 20 stitches. Because as I stated before, you don't want to get all the way to, let's say, row 5, and then your stitch count is off, and you got to go and what we call frog everything back to row 2. So it's best to take just a few seconds to count all your stitches before you go to the next row. Now, one thing you'll also notice, that we're starting to get a cuffing. That's exactly what we want. When you're doing increased rows, you'll get the cuffing so that it'll start taking its shape. Because remember, we're working in the round. We're not doing a flat piece where we're going across. So before I actually go any further, I'm only going to close it up. As you can see, it's cuffing. Now, it's cuffing right now in the wrong direction. That's fine. It's easier to crochet this way because when you get further down, you can always just flip it over. So if we take a look here also before we go any further, you can see this is what we call the right side. It's the pretty side. And if you look, the stitches are inverted. This is the wrong side. So that's another terminology that you'll hear. Welcome in, whoever came in. Unfortunately, I can't see the comments. because of the device I'm using, because my ring light, unfortunately, is not staying still like it did last week. And it kept falling down. Not sure what happened. And my husband's not here to fix it. So I had to put my phone on side of my tabletop lighting. Oh, shoot. Let me turn this off. I'm sorry, y'all. And I also forgot to turn my lighting on. I do apologize. So that's the wrong side. So you'll see that terminology as well. You'll hear terminology where it says right side and wrong side. Another thing you can do is when I came back to crocheting, I took a stitch marker when I was crocheting. This works better though when you're crocheting something where you're going back and forth. You can always take a stitch marker and just stick it right there, just like that, because that now lets you know this is always the right side. So when you're crocheting something, when you're going back and forth and it says do XYZ on the right side, you're going to be looking at it like, well, wait a minute, I can't tell the difference. What's the right or the wrong? The easiest way for a beginner is just to put a little stitch marker there. You'll always know this is the right side and that's the wrong side. So that's a tip also that you can do when you're a beginner. Now, I'll show you what to do with those stitch markers in a minute. But before we go any further, let's go back and count our stitches. Again, you have two ways you can count. Let's grab my darning needle. You can count the actual stitch itself. It could be a little confusing, or as I told you before, we can count our V's. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now, I got to continue because I stopped. I didn't want to go any further. So we at 18. Now we got to do 2 more stitches. Oh, wait, no, I think I counted that wrong, you guys. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Yep, I did do it right. 18 and then 20. And then 2 more gives me 20, so I did count it right. All right. Now that we have our 20 stitches in the round, again, we're going to count up 1, 2, 3. At the top of that stitch, we're going to put our hook through. I made that a little tight. Told you, don't do it tight, and I did it tight. 1, 2, and 3. Put our hook through and draw it all the way through. You draw up some yarn. Now, one thing you can do when you're a beginner, so you'll always know where you started, you can take your stitch marker and see, this is our last stitch. Am I in the way? Okay. This is our very last stitch. This is stitch 20 right here. You can take your stitch marker and put it right here. That's one way you don't have to keep going back and counting, because you know that once you get around to the stitch marker, you're at the last stitch. Now, what you would do is you would count. If you lost your count, then you would count. So now we're at round 2. We're going to draw up again. This is now going to be another increase row. And this is going to be our last increase row for the 0 to 3 month baby hat. Because after this, it's just going to be straight stitches, because this will get us to the height or the width that we need. And I wanted to show you something really quickly for the 0 to 3 months. If you take your tape measure, which is another thing you can use when crocheting that you want to keep on hand. If you take your stitch marker and you go to where the band is that we made, you should have about 5, it should come out to about 5.5. So if you're measuring this, you should have about a 5.5 inches in width around the band. Don't ever measure up here. You want to measure the actual band. A 0 to 3 month baby's average head is going to be about a 5.5 inch. Of course, you know, some babies have bigger heads. Some babies have smaller heads. I happen to have, my youngest daughter had a smaller head. I have a smaller head than the average adult. But the average hat will be about a 5.5. Now, if she happens to have a smaller head, one thing you can do is just weave in and out in each one of these stitches and put a pretty little bow in there. And that way mommy can tie the bow on the side of the baby's head and tighten up the hat a little bit. But you don't want to crochet a hat too small that it leaves the little marks on the baby's head, because you're trying to make the hat tighter. All right, so we just drew up our chain 2. Now see how I had this like this? Now this is another way that you know you're also crocheting the right direction, because this hook now is on this side, the stitch marker mean. That's how you know I'm on the wrong side. You just flip it back over. Now we're crocheting in the right direction. Because when you're crocheting and around, you're always crocheting counterclockwise. Whether you're left-handed or not, you're always going to be crocheting counterclockwise in the round. So for this now our chain up is going to count as a stitch. It is definitely going to count as a stitch. We're now going to move into the next stitch, which is the very next V right here. We're going to put 2 double crochets right here in this stitch. 1 and 2. This is now considered 3 stitches. It is still an increased row. So we have 1 stitch here, 2 here. So now we're about to crochet a pattern. The next stitch is going to be 1 double crochet. The next stitch is going to be 2 double crochets. Your next stitch, 1 double crochet. The next stitch, 2 double crochets. And we're going to repeat this pattern all the way around. And I'll show you what to do once we get to the end again. Just draw up some yarn. And this is 2 double crochets. And remember, we're on round 3 now. Our last increased row. And if you was going to make this for a 3 to 6 month, you're going to still do the same thing. See, I can pull the stitches apart and see what I did while I'm talking. You're still going to stop increasing at this stage, even for a 3 to 6 month old. The difference with a 3 to 6 month old, you'll just add another row or 2, depending on the size hook that you're using for your 3 to 6 month old hat. But you're going to still not increase here. If you're going to do a youth, you would be increasing another row. If you're going to do a preteen, you'll be increasing another 2 rows. And then the adults typically have an increase of anywhere from 6 to 8 rows of increases. So now we're at the last 2 stitches. So how you know you're actually on the right count? 1 double crochet. I'll move this stitch mark out the way. And then your last stitch should be 2 double crochets. Because remember, the pattern was 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. Now, let's count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. All right. That's our next stitch count. Whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, wait a second. 3. Now, I'm glad I made this mistake. I want to show you. Because that stitch count is off. So, I hope you can see this. Let me do it this way. I have my 1 here, and in the next stitch I have my 2 double crochets. If you can see, 2 double crochets. 1 here, 2 double crochets. 1 here, 1 double crochet. This is why I said it's important to count, because now what I have to do is I have to frog everything from back to the stitch. I'm glad I made this mistake on camera. This is actually a good thing. Again, let's look at that again. Here's my one, that's going to count as a stitch, the 2 double crochets in the same stitch, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets in the same stitch, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet. So I don't have to take it all out. I can just come where I made that mistake, because it does happen to all of us. And there's my 2 double crochets. So now my pattern is back on track. So as you can see, 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9. So let's get back into it. And I'm going to show you something that I knew some students used to do. All right. So now that's 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, some people like to do it this way so they know that they stay on track. So they'll go 1, and they'll do 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, you can do it that way as well. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, I apologize, y'all, because I cannot see the comments. 1, 2, 3. 1, and the last 2 stitches, 2 and 3. All right, let's go back and count again. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. That's our correct count for row 3. And this is why I say it's important, even for myself. I always still count back no matter what. And I've been doing this for a very long time. But this is why it's important to at least count back, because you can easily be distracted and mess up your count. So we're going to go ahead and take our stitch marker out. And this is actually what you're going to use to count where your stitch marker was. Again, that is 1, 2, 3. We're counting up to put our hook in the top of that chain 2 and close up that round. All right. So now from this point on, it is just straight rows. So as you can see, again, this is row 1, row 2, row 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are just 1 crochet all the way around. That's all it is. Just 1 crochet all the way around. I'm not going to sit there and do that because it's going to take a while, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and do in a round. I'll go ahead and do 1 crochet in a round, and I'm going to show you that band as if we ended. That's going to be a little bit different. Let me go ahead and just do this right quick, and then I'll show you how to do that band. Let's draw up yarn real quick. Give me one moment. And I'll take it off and ask some questions in a minute. I do apologize. I've been working for the last hour trying to set this up properly. I've even did some test recordings and thought I had it properly. But then, like I said, for some reason, I couldn't get it where I can see my comments. I can barely even see who's coming. I can't even see who's coming in and out unless I take my phone off the stand, unfortunately. But I do have a camera. I'm going to try to set that camera up so that I can start using the camera to film, and that way I can start using my iPad to look at the comments. And I'm going to go live again tomorrow, just really quickly, and so we can go ahead and start the Granny Stitch baby blanket as well. So we can go ahead and get that out the way. And I'm almost done, almost there. And if it looks a little like a cone, it's fine. It will eventually flatten itself out. But that's how you know you have a good curve as well. Now the band is a little bit more tedious. It takes a little, it actually is going to take just as long to do the band as it is to do the entire hat. But I'll go ahead and show you how to do that band now. All right. Now, for the band, let's say now we're done. We're at the end. We're at the end of our hat. Now, just like the bands that you have on your hat, no matter if it's a knit hat or if it's a cloth hat, or I should say fabric hat, or if it's a crochet hat, you're going to have what is a stitch. It's a little difficult to see it on here, but this stitch is really a knit stitch that's been manipulated. It's a crochet stitch to be manipulated into looking like a knit stitch. And so, so what we're going to do is you're just going to chain up 5. Now, it depends. Some people like to do 6. Let's do 6 because I did 5 on that one. Now, here's your chains. Remember, we have our chains. Remember, these chains are V's. We're then going to go take our, remember, we're never going to count the yarn on the hook. So if you see that first V, we're not going to go into that first V. This is your first V. This one right here. We're not going to go into that one. We're going to go into the second V. We're not going to yarn over. We're just going to go into, we're going to do a single crochet into that very first V. And let's do that again. Remember, we're just going to stick the hook in, draw up the yarn, wrap your yarn around, pull through both. That's 2. So now we're counting backwards. Remember, we drew up 6. So that's 3. And that's 4. That gives us 4 stitches. Now, in order to do the band, we have that first V. Remember, I told you about the V's. You have your first V here and so forth. In order to do that band, we're going to take our hook and go into that first V, draw it up, but we're not going to do a single crochet. We're going to take that same yarn and just pull it through. That is called a slip stitch. Let's do it again. We're going to go into the very next one again. Draw up the yarn and pull through. That's a slip stitch. Now we're going to flip our work over because now we got to work backwards. And I hope you can really see this. Now, here it is again. We have our V here, our V here, our V here, here, here. However, there is one more V that is kind of hidden at the very end. You don't want to forget that because you will change the stitch count and you will change the shape of your garments. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to go into not that first one, but the second one. But we're going to go in the back loop. Let me show you that again. Here's your V, right? You have, this is called the front loop. The front loop is the loop that's closest to you. The back loop is the loop that's farthest away from you. When you're crocheting, you're going into both loops. But we want this rib effect. We want that rib effect where it's sitting up. So in order to get that rib effect, we're going to go only in that back loop. So we're going to take our hook and go into the back loop only. Draw up our yarn. and single crochet. Again, go into the back loop only, and I hope you can see that clear. Wrap our yarn around and pull through. Back loop only. Wrap our yarn around, pull through, back loop, and pull through. Now, there's two ways you can do the end, depending on how tight you want this band to be. You can go through both of your loops, but just know if you go through both of the loops, the band is going to be a lot tighter versus if you just go through that back loop, it gives a little stretch and a little give. Not to the point that it's going to loosen when you go to wash it. So now that is a part of our band. So as you can see, it is now bumping up. We're going to do that one more time. Wrap our yarn around. This is called a chain. So we're going to go into that first stitch. Remember the back loop only, not both loops, not the front, but the back loop only, and single crochet. Again, the back loop, the one that's furthest away from you, and single crochet. The back loop only, single crochet, back loop, and back loop. Now, again, when you get to this end, you're going to go into that very first chain that's sitting there next, the next chain rather. We're going to draw up and pull through. Remember, we're going to do a slip stitch. Go into the second. You're going to always go into two and pull through. Chain up, turn your work. I'm going to go in the back loop and I'm going to keep going so I can get back to the beginning so I can show you that part again before we end. I want you to see that again. And again, I'm going to go in the back loop only because I want this hat to have a little bit of stretch. Because what I always do is I always send a pretty little piece of yarn so that if it's a little loose, mommy can always put a piece of string in there. Because even if it's for a boy, she can still do the same thing. She can just cut it a little looser. Again, we're going to go into that first loop and then we're just going to go ahead and go in the back loops only because I want to show you the other part one more time. And we'll do another hat again, but we're going to start the blanket next. And I want to make sure I go in that last loop because that last stitch of me can get lost. So when you get to that last stitch, now we want to go into 2 slip stitches into the next 2 stitches. Again, we're going to just take our hook in that next stitch and pull through, and take our hook in that next stitch and pull through. Chain up 1, and we're starting all over again. And that's how you get that rib look. And it looks crazy right now, but once you finish, it actually straightens out. So it does look a little weird now, but it actually straightens itself out. But that's how you go. Plus, it's small right now, so that's why it looks a little crazy. But this is how you get that rib look, which is the knitting stitch. It's a stitch in a knitting world. The rib look. Someone took the time to figure out how to get the rib stitch look off of crochet. But this is how you get the rib look. So when you finish, again, this is what your hat's going to look like. So we're going to have a total, I think it's 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You want to crochet to 8. So remember, we did an increase in rows 1, 2, and 3. And then rows 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are just one double crochet in every stitch in a round. And then we have our band. And let's go ahead and measure this out so you can see the measurements for the 0 to 3 months. So if you go from the crown down to the end, it should be about 5.5 inches that way as well. So that's how you know your measurements are right, your stitches are on point and all that. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. Again, I apologize because I couldn't see who all was in here, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go live again tomorrow. We're going to start the granny stitch blankets. It's going to be 36 by 36. We're going to be using the Bernat blanket yarn to do that for Carson. because that's the one my daughter wants to bring her home in. And so we'll learn how to do the granny stitch tomorrow. If you have any questions, please drop them down below in the comment section. And after I upload this, I will be sure to answer any questions and concerns and comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. Again, I thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.